Hack number 3, social media. And in the context of finding a job these days, that is pretty much LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a bit like your personal company website. So it can be used two ways in recruitment. Either one, somebody identifies you on LinkedIn and actually reaches out to you, headhunts you and says, hey, I've got this job, would you be interested? Or number 2, you've gone through a normal recruitment process, you put in your resume, and I think this person looks quite good. I'll quickly have a look at their LinkedIn profile just to kind of justify that decision in my own mind that, you know, what they've said on their resume is the same as what's on the LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn profile is something that is peer reviewed. A resume can be a work of fiction, but also, you know, what's the photo like and so forth. So it is an important tool in the toolkit. It's not the be all and end all, but it will influence your chances of success, statistically speaking. So you've got to make sure it's good. The most important things we're talking about here is number 1, the photo. Profiles without a photo are 10 times less likely to get an interview anyway, so you've got to have a photo. But very importantly, it's got to be a professional photo. It's got to be something that says this person is going to work in my working environment, not a social photo, you know, where you've got a glass of wine in your hand, or what I call the third shoulder photo, which is I looked really good at that wedding, but there was somebody standing next to me, so I just cropped them out of the photo. So it's worth making the investment. It's not that much. Go to a professional photographer, just get them to take a few photos of you and then use those, because it will pay dividends. First impressions do count. Then underneath your name on your profile, you've got a headline area. You've got about 120 characters to play with. Think of this as a micro elevator pitch. So obviously if you're on a job at the moment, you probably put your current job title. But if you're not, you've got a bit more flexibility. You could say, you know, MBA qualified engineer with 15 years experience in resources, or whatever it may be. But the most important section is the section underneath that, called the summary section, the about you section. Most people don't even have one. They just have a list of jobs and job titles. But successful people tend to have that summary section, because this is what's search engine friendly. And bear in mind that there are an awful lot of people on LinkedIn. In Perth alone, there are over 650,000 people on LinkedIn. That is an enormous number. You have to stand out from the crowd. It's like having a company website. If you're on page 10 of Google, you are never going to get any business to your company website. You've got to be on page number 1. And this is where it happens. So I want you today to go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile. And on that LinkedIn profile, you'll see I have a little elevator pitch. 2 sentences, just say who I am. So I'm executive search, 26 years career, etc., etc. And then I've got a bullet point list of the key things that I deliver to my potential customers. I am the 3rd most viewed headhunter in the whole of Australia on LinkedIn. Not necessarily my 3rd best. It's just I know how this game works, and therefore I'm playing the game properly. So what I want you to do is, first of all, work out your elevator pitch. Work out, you know, what sells you briefly, succinctly, in 2 sentences or less. But more importantly, work out what are the key skills that you are bringing your potential employer. Don't sell what you want to sell what your potential customer wants to buy. And it's a really interesting little exercise. Go on to Seek and do a search for jobs anywhere in Australia. And any job which you find which hypothetically you would be interested in applying for, read that advert and look at the key skills that they're talking about in the advert. And they'll say you will have experience in engineering, and you will have experience in doing Excel macros, and you will have an MBA, and blah, 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 blah. Make a note of those terms and do a sample size of at least 30, ideally 50 jobs. At the end, once you've gone through that sample, I want you then to do a tally and see what are the most common 8 to 10 terms that have been sought after that you can offer, because that's your bullet point list. By just transposing that in, you know, briefly and succinctly in a bullet point list, you have search engine optimized yourself. And then when Human Eyeball Mark 1 flicks onto your LinkedIn profile after it's popped up in the search engine, they're going to go, Tick, 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 tick. That's exactly what I want. Let's reach out to this person and have a chat. Again, it's shooting fish in a barrel because most people don't do it, and it is so simple. And then as and when you apply for jobs in the future, just update the data, put extra data in from those new adverts that you're seeing, just to make sure you're consistent and up to date with what your potential customer is after. The other important thing is be careful what you put on social media in general. A couple of years ago, I was doing a piece of work for another university, and it was quite a high-level role in their kind of corporate administrative area. And we made an appointment. This guy was a person relocating over from Victoria, coming back to Perth. Seemed perfect. So they went through the interview process. They loved this person. Fantastic. We did references. All the references were great. They made him an offer. And so that afternoon, he went to his boss and he handed in his notice. He called his tenant in Perth and said, sorry, you're going to have to leave. I'm coming home. I want my house back. They contacted the kids' school and said, we're taking the kids out of school now and we're going to relocate back to Perth. They got hold of the removal company and they sorted out a removal company. A couple of hours later, he gets a call. And it's from his new potential boss at this university. And they go, sorry, we're withdrawing your offer. I said, what do you mean you're withdrawing my offer? He said, well, it's what you put on Twitter. And he goes, what do you mean what to put on Twitter? I didn't realise I even had a Twitter account. He said, yeah, you had a Twitter account. You haven't put anything on there for 5 years, and there were only 50 posts or so on there, and most of those were retweets. But a handful of those retweets were politically incorrect. They were ochre 1990s Australian humour. And once people heard the announcement that you'd been appointed, they Googled you and they found this Twitter account, and a few people then scrolled through your Twitter account and they saw this and they were deeply offended, and we can't have you working in our institution as a result of that. So as a result of a handful of retweets that this person made 5 years ago that he couldn't even remember, probably had a glass of wine in his hand late at night, his entire life was ripped up. Didn't have a job, kids out of school, didn't have anywhere to live. Nightmare. All because of those things. So really be very, very careful about what you put out there on the internet. The rule of thumb is think what your grandmother would think if she saw that post, whether it be on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever you're using. Because if you feel your grandmother would be offended, I can guarantee you a potential employer will be offended. And I can guarantee you a potential employer will be already checking out your social media before they employ you. And certainly as we move forward in the coming years, it will get more and more prevalent. There are more and more advanced tools that are sifting through everything you've ever done. So if you're not happy with what it looks like or what it says, delete it, get rid of it, and make sure what's out there is professional and reflects you, how you want to be viewed, as opposed to you with a bottle of Jack Daniels in your hand. Here endeth the lesson.